Hello everyone, I'm a current student at Liberty University, and today I will be presenting my project on interpersonal communication. It comes from section HSCO 508. I will start off by telling about my overarching goal of the whole class on communications. I chose 2 Bible verses. The reason why I chose 2 Bible verses is because I feel that that's what we should follow and that we should aim to exemplify that in our life every day. The first Bible verse I used was Colossians 4:6. Let your conversations always be full of grace, seasoned with salt, so it may know how to answer everyone. The reason why I chose this verse is because Jesus spoke graciously to everybody. He used his words wisely and he made the most of every opportunity. We also should refrain from speaking corruptions to others. The second Bible verse is Proverbs 18:13. To answer before listening is folly and shame. This one was very meaningful to me because we must learn how to be patient. We come from a fast-paced world that we want things now. We don't want to wait a second, a day, or longer than we have to. But it's important when communicating with others that we're patient. We should listen to all the facts and we should desire understanding versus always constantly trying to give our own opinion. So that's my overarching goal as interpersonal communication. To give you a background information about myself, I am a military brat. My father was in the military. We moved around all the time, every 2 to 3 years. I cannot call a specific place my home except for in South Carolina where my grandparents stayed. That is my home. I went there every summer, every time we had a break. My family would get together, we'll get there. There were so many memories and it just was a personal meaning experience for me, and I love being there. So I consider my home where I'm from, South Carolina, at my grandparents' house. I got a bachelor's degree at Fayetteville State University, criminal justice, and a minor in sociology. Now I attend Liberty University, pursuing to get my master's in human service counseling with a concentration of family and marriage. I'm a single parent. I have a 8-year-old daughter named Serenity. So to further discuss what went on in interpersonal communication, we had to do an assessment on the Uniquely You website. This was a behavioral blend that predicted patterns of our personalities and our behavior. It was divided into 4 sections, the 4 temperament model of human behavior, called DISC. The D stood for active task-oriented, the I stand for active people-oriented, the S stand for passive people-oriented, and the C stand for passive task-oriented. It was divided into 2 sections, this is me and what other people expect from me. In both of the sessions, I scored high in I, which is the active people-oriented, and also the S, which was passive people-oriented. I was mind blown by this assessment because I didn't think they were going to come near close to how my personality or my behavioral patterns was, but it actually did. The results that I got, it said, that I'm inspiring to others and submissive. I like to be outgoing in crowds, but I'm passive and reserved in small groups or with individuals. People expect me to be more relational than functional or in a project-oriented type of background. I'm friendly. I'm often enthused. I'm not pushy or controlling unless someone is kind of overstepping their boundaries and going against my plans or beliefs. So that assessment and Uniquely You is great. I feel like everybody should actually take that assessment and answer it honestly and truthfully. Some of the communication barriers I found that I have in interpersonal communication, of course, the first one I'm going to speak on is perception. A lot of times we do we're at fault for perception. Perception are the cues of paying attention when communicating with others, things that we choose to pay attention to. And sometimes when we conversate with certain people, we pick up things and we often put labels and stereotypes on these people. And it's just not a good thing to have when communicating with others. Another communication barrier I have is the me statement. When we communicate with people, we have feelings and assumptions that we have internally. So when I'm talking to somebody, it's kind of like when they're discussing things internally, I have a lot of things going on or perception about them. We constantly tell how we think, how we feel. The me thing is good sometimes to start off difficult conversations, but it also could be misunderstood and it can sound a little opinionated. So you kind of want to stay away from that. The third obstacle I had was clarifying. Clarifying is to increase understanding, reflecting. Admit when you're unsure. A lot of times when I talk to people, I don't admit when I'm unsure. I don't ask them for examples. I kind of just let them talk and then I just listen. And that was my perception of communication before this class. They talked. I listened. I didn't care to get clarifications. I didn't care to see where they were coming from. And that was not a good thing to have. Another barrier I had was the faker. I am in the human resources department and I have over 200 employees. So I am good at faking like I'm listening. I would do the head nod. I would smile. I would memorize what they say, but then I often found that my brain would go into overload trying to memorize what everybody was saying. And it just was not a good thing for me. And that's one of the things I've learned about myself in this course. Some of the actions that I needed to do is for effective listening. One of the big things was also being an empathetic listener. If I do, continue to want to be a counselor to others. But I need to be attentive. I need to be interested in listening and understanding what people are saying. I need to reflect on their feelings, not to pass judgment, and also pay attention to nonverbal cues such as their body language, facial expressions. I need to provide safety for them. And one of the books that we read from Peterson is the Talker Listening Card. They're one of the actions that I'm going to use to help overcome my barrier, because as a listener, we're providing safety. We're trying to understand and clarify what they're saying. And then as a talker, we have to realize we're not there to solve, the talker's problem. The talker has a problem and they're sharing it with the listener. So that is one card that I actually try to work on every day, and it actually helps a lot. Also when interacting with people, because I do work in an office, I'm constantly distracted or interrupted because there's so many things that are going on. So I need to also listen to who's speaking and block out the distractions. Even when they're talking, make sure I don't put my values or my beliefs on them. You should always clear your mind when talking to people, and not to give anybody any type of advice when communicating with them. That also can be just an awful, it could be very bad, just to give your advice and your perception of how things should be. Also to help me with my interpersonal communication skills, I often use my child as far as communicating, getting her to open up when she doesn't want to talk, especially after school, asking her questions or asking things like, hey, this is what happened to me, which opens up the conversations, and it's really good. But most importantly, you have to know within yourself when you're able to be an active listener. If you're not able to clear your mind and you're not ready to listen to someone because you have an overload of confusions and things going on, you need to learn how to say, hey, I'm unable to talk or discuss things right now. In the conclusion of my interpersonal project, I was able to tell you what my overarching goals were with the 2 Bible verses, and I gave you background information about myself. I also told you about my Uniquely You blend and how it was straightforward, and how what people thought of me and how I was actually the 2 highest for me. I also told you what actions and plans that I'm going to take to help my interpersonal communication with the talker listening card, making sure I can bring clarity by asking questions, by making sure I'm understanding the person when they're speaking, asking questions when necessary, but not in a judgmental way. Also, not to always give my advice. Well, you should not at all give your advice to people, but allow them to work out their problems. Also, I'm going to work on more being an empathetic listener, because I want people to feel like I'm listening to them. I want to give them my full attention. I want to be there, and you know, I want to actually feel like them or their problem or what they're going through. So in closing with my interpersonal communication project, I leave you with a quote. Since God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, if you listen twice as much as you talk, you will understand and learn a lot about what that person you are talking with is really thinking. Thank you for allowing me to present my project, and have a wonderful day.